Evening, everyone. It's this is your closing comment for Thursday evening, the 18th, and it was kind of an interesting day. And I'm going to remind you of a um, title that I put on one of my notes last week, and that is "They Lied to You." And the reason that I say that is because we heard all that BS about, oh, hey, rates are going up for the right reason. So, you really don't have to be worried about it. The economy's booming, and that's why rates are up, and, it won't affect stocks. Well, as we learned over the last couple of days, and today in particular, that's a load of crap. Everything about today was about rates, with the minor exception of the claims number, which was a disappointment. People were looking for it to be under 700,000 and down on the week, and in fact, it was up 45,000 to 770. Continuing claims were down 18,000 to 4,124,000. But the bottom line there is that's still high. And what it doesn't count are all of the people who fell off unemployment and are now on the federal um, increase that they've added, which is roughly 300 a week, and the extended um, unemployment, which doesn't require a new claim. So we'll see how that turns out. We had a bunch of earnings today, but we also had an IPO, and this particular IPO is near and dear to my heart. For those of you who don't know, I lived in San Francisco for 16 years. And one of the things I liked doing the most was going up into the wine country and trying as many of the small vineyards and everything. And I came across a vineyard that at the time I thought produced phenomenal wine. They were only producing at the time um, Merlot, but their Merlot was just unbelievably smooth. And then they came out with a cab, and the prices started to increase as they always do. And the name of that company was DUCKHORN, the DUCKHORN Vineyards. And they make a phenomenal Merlot still. They also make a terrific Cabernet. Anyway, and by the way, they just came out with a second level uh, called Decoy. So the Duckhorn label has a duck on it, like a decoy floating. And the new second brand is Decoy, which is little less expensive. In any event, the IPO came out this morning. It was priced last night at $15. It opened this morning at $18.60. In the sell-off, it got down to $16.89, but it closed at $17.44, which was up $2.44. And if you have not tried their wine, you absolutely should. And if the stock hangs in this area and consolidates without going down, I'll buy it. And if the stock goes down from here because of market conditions, I will buy it. It's definitely a premium product. Okay, so also we heard that from RIDE, Lordstown Motors, who, when they reported yesterday, said, oh, it's too early on, earnings don't matter, which is easy to say when you don't have any. In the meantime, the company also had a report written by Hindenburg last week, making some accusations that were serious enough that the SEC is investigating them. So the stock, which was a SPAC originally, and traded from, SPAC price $10 or $12 up to 31, has now pretty much made most of the round trip. Today closing at 1305, down 205 or 13.5%. With a low of 1282. So 10 to 31 and back to 13. Nike had earnings, was a miss on top line, was a slight beat on earnings, and the stock had closed 143.17, down $1.65 before the earnings came. When they did come, the stock turned down, traded as low as 135, and has moved back to the 138, 139 area, which is down about $6 or a little over 4%. They cited the global pandemic, global shipping problems, port congestion, any old excuse they could throw. After last week, their CEO talking on CNBC about how great things were and, how great it was that they were doing direct to consumer, that they didn't really have to worry about the Foot Lockers and other mall-based places that had been closed. This is what happens when something is priced for perfection, and it also is something that has to do with rates, and more rates. When rates are going up, especially when they're going up as fast as they have without any kind of a pullback, valuations begin to look exceptionally stretched. You can't have 45 or 50 PE, or as you know in the S&P, a 40 PE when rates are moving higher. It's fine when companies don't have to pay anything for money. It's fine when, short-term rates are zero. But as I've mentioned repeatedly in the last couple of weeks, the Fed has absolutely lost control of the yield curve, and it is showing. FedEx, on the other hand, beat both top and bottom line, and although it closed 263.51, down $2.33, or just under 1%, when the numbers came out, the stock rocketed up $12 and change to 275, and the last that I have is 273.15, which is up $7.18, or 2.8%. The FAANG stocks have been horrendous the last couple of days. They did bounce a little, but here's today. We had Google down 55, Amazon down 98, Apple down 4, Facebook down 460, Netflix down almost 20, Nvidia down almost 23, Tesla down 48. The one of all of the FAANG stocks was up, was the one that I've been touting you on the last couple of days as right at support with very little risk, and that was Alibaba, and it was up another $3 today, even with this horrendous market. We also had, and this kind of surprises me, AstraZeneca down 74 cents on the news that their vaccine is okay, that it's not a problem with bleeding and blood clots. That strikes me as really unusual, considering that that is new news. How much research could they possibly have done in the last 4 days to come to that conclusion? So that's a little disturbing. Okay, so we had the Dow down 153, or just under 0.5%, with the internals 3.5 to 1 on the downside. But clearly the biggest loser was the NASDAQ, down 409, or 3.02%. And as I mentioned yesterday and this morning, the Russell really didn't make up much at all of its losses. It had back-to-back $40 and $48 days to the downside last week, and I believe yesterday was up around $9. Today it was down 68.81, or 2.95%. Transports, which have been down hard, managed only a minor loss today, down $9.78, and I believe that was partially due to earnings, and also FedEx is in that. So tomorrow that'll show a little bit more strength. The S&P was down $58.66. So everything that made a new high has now pulled back a bit. Not overwhelming, but a bit. The oil, however, was down over 7%. We'll go back to that and see what it's doing tonight. This morning I mentioned, or for the last couple of days, I mentioned the rolling over of this 5-day moving average, but I did temper that up right until this morning with the fact that every time it's rolled over, we have hit this blue line, which is the 20-day moving average, and it has happened once here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it looked like it might do 7 times and bounce back. However, not only did it break the 20-day, it went all the way down and hit the 50-day MA, and that was all the way down here at $58 and change, 58.13. We rallied a little to close just under 60, but tonight we are down again another 60 cents, which conveniently is 1%. The gold, which had a really nice start this morning, also gave back most of its gain. It's up $1.90 right now, but I'll show you the number that we were talking about was a close over this high, which was 1757.40. We got up to 1754.20 and then turned down and closed. Actually, it was a very long range day for recent, 1716 on the low, 1754 on the high, and we closed up $5 after being up well over $20. Tonight we're not doing much. It looks as if the 5-day really wants to cross back up to the upside through the 20-day, which would be, a temporary reversal of trend. We've already really come from the bottom here at 1673 to trade 1750, which is, meaningful, a $78 move from low to high. But we really, again, we still have to close above this 1757. I'd like it to happen on a Friday so that the week looks strong, but we'll just have to see. The coffee came down pretty hard. We are not in it. Dennis had some great trades in it, took everybody out near the highs within just a couple of ticks of the highs. And as you can see here, we came down. I mentioned this morning that we had 3 or 4 days where we were just sitting in this 135 area. And sure enough, we moved from 135 and a half to 129, closing 129.95, so pretty close to the low. Also pretty close to this orange line, which is the 50-day MA, but I have a feeling that we may test this 124, 125 area. If you recall, last week and the week before, that was my stop, and he closed below 124.95, and it looks like that number may still be a pretty decent number, although 126.60, I'm just not sure it's going to hold this time. In any event, there's that. Also, I want to make mention of something that happened today, and it just goes to show you how COVID has, what companies have done relation to COVID. And what I'm talking about is mostly the customer support. So I got an email today telling me that I owed $531,000 to CBS. And let's just show you. From a Mr. Larry Hawkins. with CVS Health Corporation and a phone number. So while I would never click on something as ridiculous as this, and of course I checked the address that it came from, and clearly that is not CVS Health, I called them. I called this 877 number and got put into a circular customer service loop, in which case I got absolutely no one. Tried it several times, and it turns out that this 877 number is actually shareholder support, asking me for my social security number or my account number with them. So, needless to say, I went to the Google and looked up corporate headquarters, which happens to be just one state below us in Rhode Island, and called them and tried to speak to somebody there. Absolutely to no avail. So, there are plenty of scams out there. We all know them. I'm sure that anybody with a half a brain knows not ever to click on an attachment from somebody that you don't know. But what's more important is that there is no such thing as customer service anymore. Not at CVS, not really anywhere. I tried to handle a problem that I had with Adobe. Next to impossible to get to them. I had a problem a couple of weeks ago, if you recall, with Network Solutions. You can die sitting on hold there. And it's the same thing right across the board with just about everyone. And in fact, they use COVID as the example for not bothering to have anybody to answer your questions. So it's a pretty sad state of affairs. I'm just reminding you, when you see something like this, mark it as spam, and never, ever, ever hit an attachment that isn't from somebody that you know. All right, everyone. I'll be back first thing in the morning, and have a good evening.